Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke to leave government to take a post at the IMF. Energy Minister dismisses claims of oil discovery in Jamaica. And later in sports, Jamaica Scorpions to part ways with head coach. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kerry Simpson. Here are the details. We begin this afternoon with news that has sent shockwaves through the political landscape and financial sector. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke is leaving the government and is to take up the post of Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, effective October 31, 2024. Now, Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, made the announcement this morning in a press release. She described Dr. Clarke as an exceptional public servant and policymaker with proven leadership in institution building and economic crisis management, who has stewarded his country's economy to a stronger and more sustainable position. Now, Prime Minister Andrew Holness described the appointment as historic.
Plays an indispensable role in the world economy, promoting global financial stability. As such, the position of Deputy Managing Director is global in scope. No citizen of Jamaica, or the Caribbean for that matter, has ever before served at this level in the IMF. It is to the benefit of Jamaica and the Caribbean for one of our nationals to serve in such a consequential global position.
Dr. Clarke will succeed Antoinette Saye, who steps down on September 12. Our business reporter Javon Keys now joins us to discuss this major developing news. Javon, you've been speaking with stakeholders, including the Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva. What can you tell us?
Well, Terry, thank you so much. And to our viewers, thank you so much. This is a really big new story coming and major developing story coming out of the IMF. I mean, I can tell you yesterday we got an invite to what was set up to be a roundtable, but they did not disclose to us exactly what it was until this morning. And the major news came in that Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke has been appointed to be the Deputy Managing Director of the IMF. He will join the team led by Kristalina Georgieva, which will mean that he will be one of 4 deputy managing directors. And I mean, I just came off that call with her. We did, and of course we'll have some of that a little later on during primetime news, but she said one of the main reasons why he was selected is because of his experience leading Jamaica as a small island developing state and helping to shore up debt in the country, making Jamaica much more resilient than it was before. And she said those factors stood out to have him selected as a part of the IMF team. She also pointed out that for her, it's a big deal because he will now bring the perspective of the small island developing states and other members of the IMF pool of countries which are vulnerable to climate shocks and other adverse effects. He will be able to speak directly to them as she enters her second tenure, where she hopes to focus on climate resilience and building resilience in small island developing states. This is, of course, a developing story. We're gauging some more reactions. There is shock amongst a number of stakeholders. And of course, the big question is, who will replace Dr. Nigel Clarke as finance minister? Of course, we'll check that for you. But until then, back to you, Kerry.
Thanks, Javon. Now, in the meantime, financial analyst Dennis Chung is not surprised by the move of Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke. Mr. Chung believes that Dr. Clarke has performed exceptionally well for Jamaica and hopes that Prime Minister Andrew Holness will instill confidence in the new appointee to the Finance Minister post.
I'm not surprised by it. I mean, obviously, the IMF would want someone like him in their corner. So I'd expect that the Prime Minister is going to select someone now who can instill the same amount or even more confidence. That's going to be critical as you select somebody. So it's not just putting anybody there, but you have to be very careful about who he selects and puts there to inside the confidence, the continued confidence in that role.
Now, when asked about potential candidates for the role, Chung had this to say.
The host, anybody who is from the host right now, I'd maybe go with Favour Williams. But outside of that, I would look outside to replace Nigel. I'm not saying that others are not capable, but, we need someone who people know understands finance very well.
In other news, Energy Minister Darrell Vaz has dismissed reports on social media claiming an oil discovery off Jamaica's coast. He labeled the news or the claims as fake news. Mr. Vaz stated that there is no such find and urged the public to disregard these rumors. He explained he received numerous inquiries about the matter.
As minister, I can categorically state that there's no such thing. It is absolutely fake news. I, as minister, would be the first one to be excited to share any such good news if and when that happens. So until such time as you hear from me, while I'm minister, disregard all information in relation to Jamaica's discovery of oil. It is just simply untrue. Lie.
In the capacity of Transport Minister, Darrell Vaz has described the state of the People's Arcade in Montego Bay, St. James as unacceptable. In a tour of the facility recently, the minister announced that there are plans to repurpose the area by developing an urban transport center. Details in this report.
What obtains here is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
That was a Transport Minister Darrell Vaz's reaction when he toured the arcade on Thursday, arguing that the facility is underutilized. The arcade, which was once a hub for small business owners, now sees a lot of squatting and unsavory activities. The minister wants all that to stop.
As it stands now, this 15 acres plus 2.5 acres, which is the transport center, is a natural fit in terms of a private-public partnership.
He then gave this reassurance to the mayor and other stakeholders.
We are going to come back to you with a plan, a concept first of all, and then after the concept, and we have a sign-off, then we move to the next stage. It's not going to happen overnight, but I know in speaking to the superintendent that there are serious concerns for security in this area, and therefore we might have to take preventative action to make sure that that doesn't get out of control.
In a bid to solve the congestion issue in the resort city, Mr. Vaz says the discussions are also underway with the landowners at Jamaica Railway Corporation to utilize land close to Bevan Avenue to establish a transportation area.
So that buses and transportation coming from the west don't have to come into Montego Bay to add to the congestion. They will be able to access it. Easy to get in, easy to get.
Meanwhile, Commanding Officer for St. James Superintendent Aaron Samuels welcomed the development plans, noting that it will help with curbing crime in the arcade.
It is with great delight that we are hearing of the changes that are going to be made with this place. I believe that it will only seek to help us to make good on the gains that we have already made in our quest to reduce crime. And this will definitely change the landscape of St. James. And we are happy and we will be supporting it 100%.
Nakinski Robinson, TVJ News.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. To a TVJ News follow-up now. High-level meetings have been underway all morning Monday amid the fallout from yesterday's temporary shutdown of the Sangster International Airport runway. We were told hotel industry leaders, the transport minister and other stakeholders are also set for discussions about the situation, which has happened twice in the last 12 months. Reports are that a plane landed on a section of the runway Sunday and damaged the area. This triggered safety concerns and meant flights had to be diverted to Kingston while the situation was worked on. The operators of the Sangster International Airport say the issue has since been fixed and normalcy has returned to the airport. Close to 12 flights were impacted by the shutdown. We will have more on this story later in Primetime News at 7. Acting Assistant Commissioner of Police Christopher Phillips is again warning young people to stay away from gangs. ACP Phillips highlighted that the recent mass shooting in Cherry Tree Lane, Clarendon, involved youth gangs that were formed by high school students.
I am fully aware that any plans to tackle gangs must incorporate some well-thought-out initiatives to push back against gangs and their existence within our schools. I am speaking from experience, and I want to say that one of the main gangs involved in the Cherry Tree Lane incident in Clarendon was formed right there in a very prominent high school in the parish.
A high-ranking police officer also stressed that combating crime in Jamaica requires more than just police work and called for broader community involvement.
To say that this all-out assault on gangs is a broad strategic intent, but one that I know requires an all-of-society involvement. We're not short on operational activities against gangs. It is going to require an all-of-society involvement.
He was speaking recently at a youth social intervention and improvement program. It's now time for the Business Minute.
Lasky Manufacturing says it made a higher profit of $701.68 million in its first quarter ended June 2024. In the comparative period ended June 2023, the company made $525.92 million. This was linked to higher operating income and lower finance costs. Lasky Manufacturing says it also saw higher revenue of $3.25 billion. A $415.67 million Jamaican dollar increase to the $2.83 billion made in revenue in the 3-month period ended June 2023. This was mainly due to growth across the company's various categories. Further afield, the ride-hailing app Uber has been hit with a $290 million fine for transferring the personal data of European drivers to US servers in violation of EU rules. The Dutch Data Protection Authority said the transfers were a serious violation of the EU's General Data Protection Regulation as they failed to appropriately protect driver information. According to the watchdog, ID documents, taxi licenses and location data were transferred to the company's headquarters in the US over a 2-year period. Uber said it would appeal the fine, which it called unjustified. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Guyana has announced its measures to control mpox at borders by training port health staff to identify symptoms and perform visual inspections. Health professionals are undergoing refresher courses on mpox management, while vaccines are stockpiled for the most vulnerable in the population. The country is also focusing on rapid laboratory testing to ensure swift identification and isolation of cases. On the international scene, an earthquake with a magnitude of 5.3 struck off the coast of Portugal near Lisbon early Monday morning. It was felt in Lisbon, Sines, Setúbal, and even as far as Porto and Spain. No major damage or casualties have been reported, but some building cracks in Sesimbra are being assessed. This is the strongest quake in Portugal since 2009, and those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Nikinsky Robinson.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report.